Hey there, everyone, and welcome back to the Para Connection podcast. You're here with Schuler, and today on the show we have two special guests, Liv and Em, from the podcast PsycKicks. I love their name because a little lame joke here, and forgive me, it's like sidekicks, but instead of side, you have psi, like from psychics. Anyways, with all lame jokes aside now, I'm really excited for today's episode because we've scratched the surface before with clairvoyancy. However, today we are going to dive a little bit deeper into it in the sense of talking about mediumship and psychic abilities. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get Liv and Em on the line and talk exactly about that. All right, so we have Em and Liv here on the line with us. How are you ladies doing?
We're doing dandy. How are you?
That's good. I'm doing wonderful. Like always, talking about the supernatural, paranormal, all things not normal are pretty good in my book. So I'm glad that you two are on here. Thank you for taking the time on, speaking here with me and a little bit about the supernatural. I was wanting to kind of start off, with some pretty basic stuff. Liv, what really got you into the supernatural? What do you do? How long have you been doing it for? Anything that kind of, stands out that's special about it?
You want to start with it, bestie?
Well, you've been doing it for longer.
Well, yeah, but I always talk over you, and then people are like, you want to let Olivia talk, but also I do talk all the time, so
So I guess I'll talk about myself first, but we have been doing Meta PsycKicks for about 2 years, almost 2 years. And well, it started out with Liv being the psychic medium, and I didn't know of my gifts until we started, and then I started telling Liv's the experiences that I was having, and she was like, yeah, other people don't really experience that, so I feel like you might also be a psychic medium. And I was like, oh, got you.
yeah, it was interesting for sure.
So I realized my gifts in the last few years. So
few years, 2 years,
2 years,
like a year and a half.
Yeah.
No, I have known that I was a psychic medium since I was about 8. We have a video and a podcast on it if you want the sob story version of it. But I used to see people without faces, and that's how I realized that I had clairvoyance, because I know we're going to talk about the psychic synesthesia today, and that's one of the clairs or psychic abilities that mediums or psychics can have. And that was wild. And growing up, it was hard to talk about being a medium to other people. I was lucky enough that my mother is also a psychic medium. She is adopted, so we don't know where it comes from past her. But Em was one of the very few people that I was able to share the fact that I saw dead people with and not feel like I was going to lose more friends that I already didn't have, being a nerd. And it was cool. So we became friends. I don't know, how long has it been now?
I have no idea. Maybe 10 years.
Probably 10 years.
Yeah.
But we both didn't have friends, which is why we became friends. I think we were on the same writing team, but Em, unbeknownst to the internet, is older than I am. Everyone thinks that she's younger.
Yeah, I look very young.
Which is hilarious. But she was at a riding... We rode together on a horseback riding team, so you can add psychic mediums and horse girls to that, because I'm sure that'll just blow up the whole world.
Right.
And I liked her riding shirt because it was pink, and I didn't have a riding shirt because I just started doing professional cool riding stuff, or what is it, showing? I think it was showing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I was like, hey, I like your shirt. And she's like, thanks. I'm really nervous. And I was like, oh, we're gonna be best friends. So then a year or 2 years ago, almost now, we went to drive across 2 states to go pick up a chinchilla because we love animals, and Emily has chinchos. And she was like, hey, you want to start a metaphysical business? And I was like, hey, that sounds like a good idea. So here we are.
Nice. That is a majorly awesome intro. I like that. You don't get stories like that all the time, and that's really neat that you two met like that. And I mean, everything I feel happens for a reason. Exactly why, maybe you don't know until at a later point, but hey, the little details, the fun things, that's really what makes up for it. That's cool. Mm-hmm. So being clairvoyant, the two of you, Would you both say that you kind of picked up on that with one another in the beginning? Was it something easy that just kind of came naturally, or did you kind of have to discuss it and understand, like building blocks, or?
Well, Em actually isn't super clairvoyant, which is interesting. We have come across that a lot of people that say or dub themselves as psychics or mediums say, well, I'm a clairvoyant. And clairvoyant doesn't necessarily mean that they are a psychic or a medium. It's just the way in which they receive information through spirit or the metaphysical, paranormal, whatever that may be. So clairvoyance technically means clear seeing or clear vision. So whether that be seeing things physically in front of you, like they portray in movies or shows, or things as what I portray as now in my mind's eye, I think that's what a lot of like metaphysical people use the term. I call it my head movies because my fiance is raised on television, and when I thought that he was funny, I just finally realized after 7 years that everything that comes out of his mouth is quotes from television. But Em's actually not as clairvoyant as me, so how did we figure that out? I mean,
Well, the reason why Liv found out she was a psychic medium sooner is because her strongest clair is clairvoyance, which is psychic seeing. Mine is clairaudience, which is psychic hearing. And because of that, people don't really talk about like what they can and can't hear. So I was experiencing paranormal things when I was younger, but it was probably more in regards of like tapping noises or like things that I just thought were like everyone else was hearing. So that's why I found out later in life, because then I started being able to perceive them like in the room with me. And I do have clairvoyance, but my strongest clair is that clairaudience, which is psychic hearing. That's usually what comes first.
Wow, that is fascinating. Thank you both for that breakdown. I've never really thought about the different categories like that. It's more of like what you see off of movies, I guess, or reading books. You know, if you're psychic, you kind of have everything. But to be able to break it down, there's one strength here, there's another strength over there. It makes sense. You know, it really does. And with the two of you having different types of levels, if you will, of these abilities, do you feel that you both will be able to actually have the same type of abilities, like full clairvoyance, seeing, hearing, smelling, or are individuals unique to one type of ability, if that makes sense?
I think it's mostly based on how you think. So, one of the things I like to explain to our listeners is that if you learn best by like auditorily hearing someone, or like if you're a visual learner, you're probably more prone to those clairs. So that's kind of like it's based upon your mind and how your mind works. So for me, if you were to show me like a picture of something, my brain's gonna be immediately like, this is the most literal thing ever. Like, you know, the ink blotch kind of thing,
Right.
where you are in therapy and they're like, what do you see in this ink blotch? And I'm just like, it's an ink blotch. What do you mean it's just an ink blotch? I get more information from auditory information than I do from visual information. So I need more than just seeing something. I need to have like other clairs associated with the things that I'm seeing.
Gotcha. Okay, yeah, no, that makes really good sense. What about vibrational senses? Do you both know anything of that, or is that something that can be considered like a psychic ability?
I would delineate that as clairsentience. So with the psychic senses, synesthesia just is basically a fancy word to say a sensation that a person experiences without or with the lack of a physical.
Synesthesia is when one of your senses is being triggered. However, the whatever is not, like, they don't match together. So it's like smelling colors. Your nose can't smell something visual. So whatever is stimulated, it's not the information that you're receiving.
Oh, that's the word. It's you get the physical sensation, or you get a sensation but without a physical. What did you say?
Stimulus?
Yes.
Okay.
There we go. You don't have a physical stimulus, however you're perceiving or experiencing something. So there are 6 different psychic senses known as the clairs. So there's clairvoyance, which is what we're talking about, which is clear seeing, clairaudience, which is clear hearing, clairsentience, which is clear feeling or sensations, clairgustance, which is clear taste, clairalience, which is clear smell, and claircognizance, which is clear thoughts. So the way in which a psychic or medium has these abilities is unique and individualistic to them. It's kind of like a fingerprint. So my clairvoyance might be really strong. However, M's clairaudience is super strong. But the cool thing with us is we have all 6 clairs, just in different capacities. Whereas I thought it was interesting. Em and I actually talk about this because people are like, well, I'm a clairvoyant, or I'm an empath, I'm clairsentient. And I made a joke one time because I guess in the Bible, some people say that like Jesus is clairvoyant, right? He's a clairvoyant.
Yeah, they refer to like psychics and mediums as clairvoyants. It's like another word.
And we were talking about it in our Akashic Records video, and I was like, what do you mean? I don't understand how there's just only clairvoyants. Like is there only people that are clairgustants? Like, let me lick this ghost. I know everything about you know.
Right.
Right.
That would be one way.
Does that answer your question?
No, that's a very good breakdown. Yeah, I don't know if I would want to, lick a ghost, even if it's not necessarily physical, but that'd be a weird way of finding information. But
it's not just tasting the rainbow,
right.
you know?
Right. Well, no, that's a really good breakdown, and I'm curious, especially for our listeners, for anybody out there that's, trying to figure out if they have such abilities, or if they're afraid, or if it's something that they're just trying to interact and understand, maybe for someone else and not even themselves. But starting here with you, Em, because your abilities with audio, like that's really new to me. So I wanted to ask, what would be a really good example or something common for you to pick up on with that type of ability?
With a clairaudience. Oh, you want me to do the fish tank example?
Yeah, because it's so good, because like you got the same answer as I did, but we received information differently. It's great. I love it.
A lot of people think that clairaudience is just like hearing voices. So people think that what I do is kind of like I'm on the telephone with spirits and spirits just speak words at me. However, it is a way more than just hearing voices. There was this one time where my fish was having this issue because there were like bugs all over the tank. However, I was unaware of this happening in my tank. So for like a week or so, this fish tank just sounded so unbelievably loud. And I like could not pinpoint why it was like having this issue. And I don't think anyone else was hearing it because no one like said anything to me that was like in the house with me. However, I like tried multiple things to make this fish tank not like loud anymore. I did multiple water changes. I cleaned it thoroughly. I was almost about to go like get a new one because I thought it was broken. And then Liv comes over, and Liv is a pet psychic as well. And she was talking to my fish, and my fish was telling her that there are things in the water with him. And she looks around in the tank and she sees these like white little bug things. They kind of look like bubbles, but they're like alive. So I was getting the information clairaudiently because the volume of my fish tank was louder than it was supposed to be. So that's one of the things that goes into clairaudience, is the volume of things will be different, because I have the ability to kind of like, if you're like listening to music, you can pinpoint certain instruments within the music, and it's almost like you can turn down the volume of the rest of the instruments and just focus on like the bass, or just focus on the vocals. And that's what I was doing with the fish tank. However, I was unaware of me doing that, so I got the same information that there was something wrong in my fish tank that Liv did when she talked directly to my fish.
Wow. That is something else. That's really neat, and it's cool that you both kind of combine that information too, as a sort of validation. That's really neat.
Yeah, it was super cool, and that kind of like brings it back to vibrations. So I feel like when you're asking the question with vibrations, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's kind of when you walk into a space and you're like, this vibe is not the move.
Right, exactly, Liv. That exactly. Like when you're right in front of someone, behind somebody, or even if it's a room full or an empty room, it's like there's something that you can feel. Kind of like, I guess the best way I can describe it is the higher up a mountain that you hike, the heavier the air gets. You can feel the change, but you can't see it. Maybe you can't even hear it, but your body reacts to it.
Yeah, I would say that that's more of a form of clairsentience. So clairsentience again is clear feeling, and that goes into not only what people would dictate as an empath, which is somebody that can feel emotions, but it also means clear feelings in the sense of physical sensations. So I I I think what we both experience that kind of vibrations, kind of like you walk into a room and remember when we had the haunted house
Like
that
the
we almost went
feeling
into?
of a room.
Yes.
Yeah, clairsentiently understanding the feeling of a room.
Yeah, I feel like just we don't necessarily maybe pick up on the vibrations as much because it's that vibrations, it doesn't stop there for us. It goes all the way through us to give us more information. Does that make sense? Because that's what they're telling me to say.
Well, for clairsentience, it's you can feel things within your physical body, but you can also feel emotional things. So it's like when you walk into a room and you know something like just happened because the energy of the room is like stressed or tense. It's kind of like that in an emotional sense, but you also can feel physical sensations. Like if someone were to be sick, you can feel the sensation of where they're sick when you're a psychic medium.
That's a pretty big breakdown. Yeah, and I've heard that before too, like with people that are injured or sick, and maybe it's something that isn't physically apparent at that moment in time, but some people know what it is. Now that, I've not experienced that myself, but that is an example that I've actually heard and read of, though. Have you two ever had an experience like that or familiarized?
Have you had one like that?
What, did I feel other people's pain?
Yeah, or just like ailments. I know that you said recently people souls have been showing you how they die, but we don't have to talk about that. I mean, it's not horrible. I think it sounds more horrible than it actually is. And Em's kind of learning that, maybe.
Well, when a soul tells you kind of how they die, it's not in a like scary way because the information that comes from a soul is never portrayed in a fearful way. It's usually from a place of understanding. So giving that information to me allows me to understand them on a different level. So I have been getting information clairsentiently about how people have died. I will also pick up on how people are feeling, but I have to more tap into it, where Liv kind of sometimes can't ignore it because I have a lot of chronic pain, so just being around her, she's like, God, do you have a headache right now? And she'll describe exactly where my headache is, and I'm like, yep, that's me.
Oh, wow.
I totally forgot about that because that's just our daily existence.
Yep.
Wow. That is crazy that you can feed off like that, Liv. And that actually raises a really neat question that I wanted to ask you with your type of abilities. It's more full spectrum, if you will, if I'm categorizing that correctly. With what you see, what you feel, what you hear, how is that? Is it, I know probably at this point it's not necessarily, weird or scary, but is it ever like startling, or is it overwhelming when you experience some of these things? Do you see full-bodied apparitions? Do you get full stories?
That is a good question. I'm trying to figure out how to break it down. So first of all, I would like to answer that I do have the ability to kind of turn it off. Em likes to argue with me about this though. She's like, I don't think you ever like actually turn it off though. Right?
You try to like put a wall around yourself, but your spirit guides keep telling you that you don't need to do that, that it's probably more overwhelming for you to do that.
Either way, it doesn't plague my existence, if that makes any sense. And as far as seeing full body apparitions, that kind of stopped when I was a child. And I know at the very beginning of this, you mentioned about talking openly about, what we do as psychic mediums and just giving some advice for people that might be fearful if they experience the paranormal or metaphysical. And my first thing is, like Em kind of said, even when they're showing us how or soul a person, an animal, whoever it may be, is showing us how they passed, it's never in a fearful or scary way. It might be startling because you're perceiving information from a soul, which you can't actually physically see, but once you get over that, it's fine. But you're able to set boundaries. So one of those boundaries that I set when I was a child and started seeing full body apparitions of people without faces, my mother told me, you can tell spirit. And when I say spirit, it's not just the soul or being that's talking to me. I like to say it kind of as a collective, because that's the sort of space in which they reside. And she said, you can have boundaries with them. So if you don't want to see souls or apparitions like that, you say to yourself, whether it be in your head because they can hear you if you have thoughts, or out loud because it makes you feel better, because at the end of the day, I'm still a physical being and physicality makes me feel safe. You can have those boundaries. So as I grew up and my abilities changed, I no longer necessarily see people as full body apparitions as you might see in the movies or other people might say when they have a paranormal experience. Because I tell spirit, hey, you have 6 other ways for you to communicate with me. You got to pick a different one, because that shit's not cool, you know?
Right. Totally get that.
It creeps me out. What was the next part of the question?
I think if it's just you're overwhelmed with information.
Oh, yeah, not usually. Sometimes, well, during readings, I would say clairsentience is my second strongest clair, next to clairvoyance, because a lot of the times people ask us, well, how do you know it's not just your own heads? How do you know that you don't just have a mental illness? And the way Em has finally been able to help me explain that by putting it into better words than I can is that when we experience our clairs and we're channeling spirits or a soul or a spiritual being, whatever it may be, I'm talking to an animal or a plant, I get more than one clair of information. So I'll get clairvoyance and see something within my mind's eye, kind of as if I were to say, can you envision a taco? Some people can't, and that's okay, but a lot of people I've talked to do, and they can envision something within their head, or say, you know, what were you doing last Thursday in the evening? You can kind of remember it. That's how I get images clairvoyantly now. I'll also get clairaudience, which is hearing sometimes, whether it be in my own voice or someone else's. And I'll also get clairsentience, which is clear feelings, which is mostly emotions, but also if someone passed, they'll make me feel certain ways on my body and give other supportive clair information to fill in the gaps of what they're trying to convey to me. So sometimes during readings, if it's very emotional, I'll feel not only my client's emotions, but also the soul that I'm channeling. And I cry more than my clients. I should tell you.
Wow, Liv. Wow. It's so that type of connection, it can be that powerful then.
Oh yeah, I want to say so far this year, one of my most powerful readings was a woman that I was talking to. My client, their mother had passed, however their father was still alive, and the woman in spirit, the mother figure, she had been passed for a few years now, and in 2-3 seconds she made me feel 60 years worth of marriage and love. And at that point I just broke down, because that's one of my biggest goals in life, is to just have like a really long happy marriage. And she knew that, this soul, this spirit knew that, and she's like, you're giving a gift to not only the people that I have that are still alive, but I'm going to give this gift to you.
Wow. Wow, the transference of emotions, and especially from like a spiritual being to a physical being, you know, that's, you hear about it, but to talk with someone that works with that type of environment, you know, on a regular basis, it's just really eye-opening on what this world, I guess, can be, and the reality of coexistence.
Yeah.
Wow, that is something else. And working with the type of abilities that you both have, I wanted to ask you, Em and Liv, do you both like co-op with readings? Are there different perks of like how people can be read, or the type of results or answers they can get with the different types of clairvoyant abilities, if I'm saying that right?
Yeah. Do you want to explain the services that you do? Because as twin flames, we kind of complement each other. So the way that we have our services and readings laid out give a pretty broad spectrum. SPF, spiritual, I don't know. How I need to be better at the puns on the spot. Gotta do SPF something, because I'm really, really pale.
Gosh.
So, you know, broad spectrum spirituality.
That's
I
all
don't know.
right.
Yeah, so the services that we offer, I generally do tarot readings because I don't have as much experience as Liv in the mediumship category, since she's basically been seeing spirits since she was 8 years old. So I just don't have the confidence to do the psychic medium stuff. However, with the tarot readings that I've been doing, I have been able to perceive the spirits around them, because when I read tarot, I am talking to the spiritual beings that are pulling the cards for me. They are telling me what to say to my client. And she does more of the psychic medium readings. There's a psychic medium reading. She does pet readings. She does house readings. She does plant readings. And we also have a like bundled reading where we both do it together, which is interesting because when you're talking about us complementing each other, Liv will talk to more of the like, I don't know, family members, like your past loved ones, where I will talk directly to like your spirit guides and your spiritual team. And those are the kind of souls that help dictate and guide your life. So I will give more like psychic information, or like information that helps you kind of understand your path, understand your goal. And Liv will provide information about like where your family has come from, any advice your family has for you, how they're doing, information like from your past relatives.
Wow, that's really neat, Em. I like that. And I was curious, with how those abilities kind of go one and one, if there's any difference. So you have, with Liv, it's more family, friends, loved ones. And then with you, it's more of like a spiritual team and spirit guides. And how would you kind of share those categories in the sense of like, are they human, or are they completely a different type of breed of beings, living beings?
The simplest answer is their energy, but they can be anything, and they usually will show you a like form that kind of emphasizes what they do. So because they are energy, the way that I perceive them is based upon what they do to help you, if that makes sense. So for example, one of my spirit guides is a big blue cloud. And what he does is he basically surrounds me, and because he's a cloud, he's able to do that, but he's one of my protector spirit guides, and he helps like put this golden energy around me so that he is able to like use that healing energy to help with anxiety and depression and that type of thing. So each spirit guide will explain what they do by how they look for me. And then based on how my brain thinks, it's easier for me to talk to like spiritual beings because I think in a very complex manner, whereas human souls talk in a more simplistic manner, and that is more easier for Liv. I also feel like Liv has more ideas of what mediumship was because her mother is a medium as well. So her mother has put in ideas of who you should be able to talk to as a psychic medium.
Boundaries with mediumship, yeah.
Gotcha.
So.
Yeah, and boundaries, I'm glad you both have brought that up because it's a very important thing to have. I think not even just if you're trying to speak to a spirit, but if you happen to find yourself in a odd place, if you move into a home or you're hanging out with somebody that deals with the occult and weird things start happening, it's all about free will and just that inner spiritual essence, if you will. And it kind of sounds weird, I think, to some people that I've spoken to, but the best way I can tell them, if you don't try to set up some type of barrier around yourself, you're not going to find yourself in a really good situation, because you can't go out and get a ghost gun, one of those proton accelerators from Ghostbusters. We're not there yet. If we are, it's not to the public. But I really respect that from you two, and I'm glad that you shared that, because for any individuals out there too, it's one thing to try to set up your own boundaries and use your free will and protect yourself. But what if there are individuals trying to communicate with like their guardian angels or their higher ups, their spirit team? Is there any like good advice that you could share with them to be able to get on that positive spectrum?
So for what I usually explain to people is that your spirit guides are going to talk to you regardless of if you know they're talking to you or not.
Mm-hmm.
The easiest way I can tell you to like contact your spirit guides, because most people don't realize they have psychic abilities, because I believe everyone has at least one. The best way is to do something physical. So if you create a sign or symbol, you can ask for that sign and symbol and they will like present it to you. So for me, when I was starting this like spiritual journey and figuring out that I was a psychic medium, I gave my spirit guides 2 symbols. And at first I was like, I want to have rainbows for yes, and then I want bones for no. And when I was doing that, I was like, oh, if I do bones, they're gonna like show me actual scary bones, and that doesn't sound like something I want. So I kind of scrapped that. However, the day after, I ended up seeing this like video online, and it was a drawing of this girl that had rainbows on her hat and then bones on their shoes.
Oh, wow.
So they gave me both of those symbols, even though I was like, oh, this is gonna be scary. But they were like, I hear you. Here are your symbols. You're on the right path. We are here for you. So that is the easiest way for someone that has not realized these gifts to speak with their spirit guide.
Gotcha. That's a really nice breakdown. I like that, Em, because, yeah, there's quite a few people that I've spoken with that, you know, have encountered malevolent entities or, you know, a negative encounter of some sort on the spiritual side. And, you know, maybe they're not religious or you know, really spiritual, not even, you know, religion necessarily, but they're just curious on different types of theories and methods that they could do to protect themselves. And a lot of time, I think it comes down to confidence, because people, if you can't see it or you can't hear it or something of the physical human touch, it's going to be difficult for them to believe. And I was like that at one point, you know, so I get that. So kind of tuning into the possibilities of a spirit team or spirit guides, these guardians, if you will, I think that might be a really good path for a lot of people, especially if they're trying to enter into the spiritual world for the first time. It's good to have some type of backup, I think. And I'm speaking from experience, because I didn't have a lot of that. I watched some TV shows and I went in head first and paid the price for it. But you know, you live and learn. But it's a really nice breakdown. I appreciate that from both of you, most definitely, and our listeners too, I'm sure. And Liv, I wanted to go ahead and touch base on the meat and potatoes here. I think we may have kind of scratched the surface a little bit already, but with psychic synesthesia, what exactly is that? What is a really good, simple, human way of breaking that down? And how can people understand if they have that, if they can do it, or...
A lot of people like to ask Em and I, what are our abilities? And honestly, their spirit guides usually tell us that, because similar to Em, when a spirit guide approaches me to talk to a client or a person, they show themselves in ways that are consistent or characteristic of how they help their person. So that's usually how I figure it out, but that doesn't answer the question that you're asking of how do they figure it out. I would probably start with what Em said, with forming a basis of communication. A lot of people say, I want to hear my spirit guides. Why don't they just speak to me? Why can't they communicate with me like they communicate with you? And I'm like, well, because the same reason why maybe you're really able to run fast and I would trip on my face, fall down, and start crying. Some people are just, that's just how it is. Some people are good at singing, some people aren't. But that form of communication is important. And when I say communication, I really mean that word. A lot of people say, or it's easier to say, I speak to the dead. But technically, at least as far as I'm concerned, and maybe Emma's too, I'm not sure, we don't actually speak to the dead, because speaking is what we're doing now. We communicate with them. Most of the time, I would say 90% of the information I receive, because I'm not super clairaudient, is not in the form of hearing or words necessarily. So it is communication. A lot of times people can communicate, whether with each other or if you're looking at like animals or something, they communicate but without words. So I feel the first and most important thing to do is, like Em said, establish a basis of communication, and that can be done with making signs and symbols between yourself and your guides, usually something that you're not going to see all the time, because then you're going to be like the Spider-Man meme, like pointing finger guns at, like, if you see rainbows all the time or butterflies or whatever. But you have to understand that when you receive information from your spirit guides, it's not always going to be in a physical way. Because when I get information from my spirit guides, it's not physical. I don't hear them speak to me. They don't appear in front of me as a big giant rock monster or die that looks like someone from the Blue Man Group. It's usually that feeling. It's kind of more of a clairsentient inkling of when I say something or I hear something, I get this sort of, it's kind of as if you were to like, I'm trying to use a SpongeBob quote because that's really how people are gonna know, right? What is it when like the sound goes through the building in SpongeBob and it sounds like a musical instrument? Do you know what I'm talking about? It's not the conch shell. It's like something that is a cave and like this cold air goes through it and it makes this noise.
I have no idea.
Anyways, that's what it feels like when my spirit guides are trolling me. I get this weird sort of sensation, kind of, what would be a better term? When people say, I feel like I'm in a bad scenario, and you get weird vibes, and you know that you need to get out of that situation, and then you do, and then maybe on the news a couple days later, you heard that wherever it was that you were just at that 2 days ago, there was a bad incident or an accident. That is your spirit guides and your spiritual team saying, hey, buddy, this isn't in our soul contract. You need to skedaddle, make like Scooby-Doo, and like, what is it? I just only hear the noises in my head from the cartoon.
What is what?
Is it like when they run and it sounds all wound up?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah. So you have to, exactly. You have to understand that when you're talking to your spirit guides, it's not going to be like you and I talking. It's going to be communicating. So whether that's the sign and symbols that Em establishes or that sort of inkling feeling that you feel in your gut, if you're thinking about something and then a song comes on or you're watching television and it completes the thought or answers the question that you had in your head, that's more than likely your spirit guides or past loved one that's like, hey, you're thinking about this and we know that you're thinking about it. Here's your answer.
Well, I also think psychic synesthesia is when, like, because I'm very clairaudient, I can see sounds. So I can see like a waveform of the object. So like every object has a sound because it is energy. So it has these like frequencies coming off of it. So for example, this table that is in front of us, this table has a certain frequency, and when it hits the floor has a different frequency, so there's going to be a transition between the two. I hear it, but I can also see it. So because it's synesthesia, it is triggering what is supposedly my ears, but I'm seeing the sound go through the table and then into the floor. And then it also is translated to a color, which shouldn't be heard as well.
Is it yellow and orange? Yes. Gross.
Wow.
And then for the like trying to figure out what kind of clairs you have, I think it is based upon how you think. So there are some people that have an inner monologue. There are some people that can vision things in their head. That is a good way. It's also a good way based upon how you learn things. So if you're a visual learner, that's going to indicate that you have a lot of clairvoyant type things. But the information is going to be different and it's going to come in different for each person.
Well, even taste and smell. So that's a really like slept on clair is clairgustance, which is tasting, and clairalience, which is smelling. I've been in multiple scenarios. Like I had a grandmother pass somewhat recently and we weren't very close. However, Em keeps telling me that there's a woman behind me and I'm like, I don't know who she is because I can't see her because it's not for me to know. But I've been annoyed just by the fact of feeling like she could be there because Em's telling me and I'm like, what is it that you want to say? And the other day I was walking through my house and I smelled hot dog stew. You don't have to know what it is, besides that it's something that she used to make. And the only reason I know what it smells like is because it was my dad's favorite meal. And he made it a couple times for himself now that he's a grown man, based off of her recipe. And I was like,
So she
why?
is behind you.
I'm gonna punch
Oh my
you.
God.
But I was like, why am I smelling freaking gosh darn hot dog stew? And I was like, I'm just gonna stop right here and ignore what's happening because I don't want to talk about it.
Wow. Wow, that is something else.
And that's Claire Aliens. So if you're looking for an answer and you're really sensitive to taste and smell, scientists say that taste and smell are one of the most triggering things to memories. So if your spirit guides want to use that and you're like, hey guys, make me taste what it was like when I was 5 to make me feel better, they might do it.
Wow. No, that would be crazy. I have to say. Start making you think, are you losing your mind, or is your tongue going on its own like path of consciousness, like what's going on? Wow, that is so cool. That really is. And I'm really curious too, with everything that you both have done, experienced, and of course what you're applying in your everyday life. Have you ever been in a situation like going to a family member's house or a friend's house, or maybe a historical museum or some type of landmark, that you went just to visit? Have you ever experienced like just random supernatural phenomenon happening and you weren't really looking for it? I guess what I'm trying to ask, just not as straight to it, but I'll ask it. Have you been on a paranormal investigation?
We went on one.
Okay.
And we went to a graveyard, and we know the souls there, so we were able to perceive the souls there. But before I get into that, because it looks like Liv wants to talk about it, one of the things that I think is funny, because you were talking about going to the museum and things like that, we went to a museum and they were having a like Egyptian like exhibit there, and Liv is walking around and she comes over to me and there are so many souls just walking around right now.
I don't remember.
I know you don't remember that, but it's hilarious because you literally came up to me and was like, oh my god, there's so many people just walking around. Stay calm.
Wow.
I was thinking about the time that I was down here and we were putting together the chincho cage for Bun Bun, and I was like, why am I tasting potato salad? Yeah, that was a good time. Potato salad, and then we met Aunt Lil, but yeah, the cemetery was super cool. The only thing I can think about now is that like silly song, all my friends are dead, push me to the edge, because it's literally our lives.
Yeah, we created a ghost hunting team, and we were going to test out the equipment in the cemetery. And we've been to the cemetery before, and we talked to the souls there before we had like this ghost hunting equipment. But it was really crazy because I wasn't expecting the equipment to like actually work. Like I realized the souls are there and I could like perceive that they're there, but at the same time I wasn't expecting them to like be able to make the things beep.
Oh no, I was thinking that the things would go off because like it's technology and you don't play around when you buy gifts. Like I've seen your Christmas list for your family. You guys do extensive research on things. But I mean, as a psychic medium, there's always that healthy form of doubt of, am I actually losing my mind? Am I bonkers? Have my marbles just fallen out and I can never ever go find them again? But to go to the cemetery and revisit a second time, because we'd gone there the first time, and at that point it was just, I don't think you knew that you were a medium yet. We didn't know.
No, at that point, that's when spirits started talking to me.
Oh yeah, because we talked to the.
So I was like, I've never talked to a soul before, but they're talking to me here.
The cemetery keeper with the tree portal.
Yeah, there's a gatekeeper there.
Mm-hmm.
There's usually a gatekeeper in a cemetery because they kind of help the souls kind of find their way back, and they kind of take care of the cemetery and things like that. So we were talking to the gatekeeper that was there, and he kind of appears as like mist, which is interesting because this cemetery is at the top of a hill where all of the fog usually kind of happens.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. But it was wild going there because you go there as a mental medium, and most people are like, okay, you're a mental medium, you like see things in front of you and like hear people whispering in your ear. And I was like, no, it is in my head. You can laugh. Mental mediumship is punny. Go for it. So going to the cemetery and then having physical validation, more so than when we went there the first time with the paranormal equipment, was wild. I lost it. It was so cool.
Talk about world
Yeah,
breaking, man.
Uh-huh.
we were able to like see how they were able to like influence the equipment, which was interesting because we talk about that in one of our podcasts of how the ghost equipment actually works for them on a spiritual level.
That's cool. That's really cool, Em. So with you two doing that, it wasn't necessarily overwhelming then with your senses, correct?
No, it actually maybe gave us a break. Although I don't know. I just
Also,
love
we
them
haven't
so
been
much.
somewhere really haunted.
Ugh. Yeah,
Because
they're
we're
like,
planning some secret plans of
And-
maybe going to a
Oh,
prison.
there you
she
go.
just wants to give me a heart attack.
But Liv is very scared of like scary places. So I feel like we're gonna go here and I'm gonna see people walking around that aren't there.
Oh God.
That's gonna be great. That's gonna be great. Yeah, that's like literally walking from point A to point B, interdimensional type of travel, you know?
I literally just want to go sit in cemeteries and have picnics with our dead friends. I don't want to talk to the scary people.
Right.
There'll be people taking care of us there. It'll be fine.
Yeah, because you got your spirit team too, so you should be
You
good.
already perceive them there.
Well, yeah, but that doesn't change the fact that it's still going to be scary.
Well, every time we like cover a haunted location, we try to find someone that will kind of be our tour guide and explain things to us and kind of lead us away from the scary parts. So this place that we're going to possibly be going to, we have a couple souls that have stepped forward and are like, we're gonna make sure no one like screws with you.
That's
Mhm.
good. No, that's really good to do because it can make a difference. And I don't think I'm on the same level as the both of you are, you know, with like spiritual guides and everything. But I can say from prior experiences when I went on investigations without doing my spiritual rituals, if you will, prayers and everything, I did get more activity. I will admit that, but it was typically negative. And then as I started to pray and bring in positive reinforcement, spiritual reinforcement, the activity, it may have been less, but I can tell you this much, it wasn't as terrifying like having scratches on you or being pelted with things or anything of that nature. And also try not to provoke too. Because that's always a bad thing. But, you know, you live and learn.
Right.
Goodness. Yeah, I don't want to be like scratched and stuff like that. I've watched a couple things of like paranormal television, but I don't know. I'm not about
Right.
that.
No, and that's good, Liv. It's you gotta take it with a grain of salt, really, because a lot of it can be drama and just Hollywood, unfortunately. But there are some out there that are more honest, I guess.
Yeah, we've only had a couple scary things pop in when we were talking about stuff, but I usually just put colors. I think people call it Reiki, but I do like, is Reiki already spiritual? Is that like doing a double thing, spiritual Reiki? Is that just the Reiki?
Mhm.
Okay. Well, I didn't know it was called Reiki. When we first started.
Energy working.
Yeah, like
Energy
healing,
working, Reiki. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
but I'll put colors around people to protect them from things that are not so cool. Or it actually started as a child when I would see animals that were about to cross the road. I would envision pink or gold light around them and pray that they wouldn't get hit by cars or tell them to turn around. And this is before I knew I could listen to animals. And then that kind of just translated into if I was upset or if I noticed other people were upset, I would put different colors of energy around them or see the colors of energy that were inside of them and envision pulling it out and replacing it with a different color. But that's usually what I do when we're in spoopy situations or make excessive dad jokes.
That's always a good backup.
Kill it with comedy.
Right. Absolutely. No, that's really cool. That really is. I've heard a little bit about Reiki myself, and it's there's been some situations too of how people they've explained to me how they like you said, literally you put in positive energy to like cleanse or heal and rejuvenate something. from my understanding, typically physical. I mean, it can be a spiritual healing on another spirit, I guess, but more so it's like someone or something that's physical, it's being healed, and then the negative energy, the pain, the hurt, the ailment, it comes out through a different type of frequency or power or energy, if you will. And I've not really practiced that myself, but to hear it and understand like the concept, it's really intriguing, and it makes me wonder, like, if that's something somebody can harness, what are the extents of that? Like the benefits. Can it heal, cancers? Can it heal brain tumors? Can, this go to a completely, not only spiritual healing of like depression, anxiety, and things of that nature, but physical healing too, like bad hearts or murmurs and things of that.
I honestly don't know about that. I know
Technically, from my research, people are able to do things like that, help your ailments, so to speak. But it also depends on how good the healer is, how good the energy healer can do those things. Because Liv and I are very much not Reiki masters.
No, I didn't even know what I was doing was called Reiki until Emily's like, wait, are you talking about Reiki? And I was like, I don't know, what is that word?
She's just able to perceive the energy, so.
It's just, I mean, perspective is everything. And when people say like one person's viewpoint of the world might be different from another person's, that was ours. I mean, being psychic mediums is just how we perceive the world. We just get a little bit of extra.
Right. No, that's really neat too, and the fact that you're kind of tuning into Reiki, it just makes me wonder too, like, you can categorize yourself one way. You might be comfortable and familiar with a certain type of ability or a sense, if you will, but apparently you can tap into other things too, as you continue to develop. You're not necessarily limited, and from the way that Liv, yourself, and Em, you've talked, it seems like that's something that you're both doing, is you're progressing and you're starting to develop more, and that's really, really great, because that makes me feel like, as a human race, I guess, or spiritual beings too, we're not necessarily doomed just to go into that 9 to 5 and coming home, making dinner, and going to sleep. It gets a little boring after a while. I say that all the time, but I mean it.
Oh, no, we get it. We had our 9 to 5, 8 to 5 today. Not 9. If it was 9 to 5, that'd be better. I wouldn't be so tired.
Right, the extra hour of sleep, it can go a whole nother mile for you. It can.
Yeah, people ask me, you do so many readings all the time, aren't you exhausted? I'm like, I am not exhausted from doing readings. Please let me talk to all of your past loved ones, because not only do I get to meet amazing human beings that are already alive, but I also get to meet the amazing human beings that are past and associated with you. That is a treat especial, let me tell you. But going to work every day, that's exhausting.
Right. Yeah, that's the kind of bring down right there, man. It's just like limitation, human limitation.
So do you think that you've ever experienced any psychic synesthesia?
Thinking about it, Liv, I'm kind of on the borderline of see it to believe it type of guy. I've seen some really crazy stuff, so I know this stuff exists, but you would think that I'm from the state of Missouri, because I gotta see it to believe it, the show me state. But yes, I do believe I have some type of ability. Over the years, I have become more empathic, I guess is how I would categorize myself. When somebody, it has to be real emotion too, I try to block, I try to protect myself, but if somebody, lost a loved one or a pet, or they're going through a really tough time, they have to get a surgery, or they lost their job and they don't know how to make their bills, and they're just pouring their energy into it and talking to me, actually talking and not just sharing a story, I will actually react to that. And sometimes it's this isn't something that I share all too much. It's something I really haven't talked about, because it's I don't know, I'm more of like the ghost guy, we go out with the scientific equipment and we look for the ghosts to be on photo and video, but there will be times, where I'll actually cry and I'll react to these people, and I know they're not my emotions. It's like, I don't know. It's like, why am I crying? I don't even know your mom, or I don't know your kid. I never met your pet, but it just kind of hits me, And my fiance, she's actually experienced that with me a couple of times. It was over a phone call. It was a family friend of my mom's, and they had a loss in the family, and I was talking to one of the family members, and he just started, he was trying to hold back his tears, and I could literally feel his emotions through the phone, and just thinking about it right now, it's overwhelming to describe it, I guess. But it hit me like a brick wall, and I just started feeling his emotions, and we talked, we cried, and we backed each other up and supported one another, and more so me to him because he needed it, poor guy. But yeah, I mean, that type of stuff, it's I think that's more of what I'm used to, I guess. That's my more common responses. How do you feel about that? Does that sound like empathic, I guess?
Yes. However, do you hear things that other people don't hear?
Like, you're really good at hearing the things during investigations that other people are like, I don't know.
Oh, I love that question. Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
And the thing that makes me feel good about that, because I question myself, I'm so bad at doing that, man. Anyway, whenever we're on investigations, there's been times where I heard like a pipe, and maybe one of my other investigators, they heard it once or twice, but I hear a pipe banging, or I hear a moan, or I hear something, and it really doesn't validate until I play back at EVP, if we were running EVP,
Right.
and that really sets it in. I'm just like, oh, thank God, I wasn't losing my mind. I actually heard that. Holy shit.
Yeah.
So that was really cool. I hear stuff like that. I will say there was one time where, this is weird, and it's kind of a shameful moment, but I was, enjoying beverages that are not soda pop, and I got a little too buzzed, and it's really not my forte to drink or to do any type of recreational thing. It's just not what I do. I don't know, but this night I enjoyed a couple too many beverages, and I got extra buzzed, and I started hearing voices, man. I don't know how else to explain this, because I don't hear voices all the time,
Yeah.
or hardly at all, I guess. But it literally sounded like two adult men mumbling behind me, like they were having a conversation, and
About
they
the
were.
young kid that drank too much. Sorry.
No, that's all right. That's probably what it was. It's like, look at this human. Oh, he doesn't know how to use this vessel. Such a weakling. No, I don't know, man. It was crazy though. I heard the two mumbling. It was like two men mumbling behind me, and I couldn't make out any words. Couldn't tell if it was English, German, French, whatever. But they were talking, and the way that they were talking was like they were planning something, or they were discussing something, and it felt like it was directed towards me. I don't know. It felt like the environment was conscious. They were intelligent, and it was conscious. That's really the only way I can explain it. But it only happened that night. Other than going on investigations and looking for the stuff, I
Were
really
you
don't hear anything.
were you sitting down when you experienced this?
Oh yeah. I
Like
was
in
sitting
a
down
lawn
Indian
chair or
style.
something? Like, where were you sitting?
Actually, my fiance and I, we were in the game room slash office room, just chilling, sitting on the floor Indian style and just talking.
That's fun.
Yeah. So I don't know. And that house, that was back in Indiana. I'm now in Florida, of course, and this house, we both feel like there was something or someone tied to it. I don't know exactly what it could have been, or if it's still there, or if it was something that could have been hitchhiking on me from all my investigations. But my fiance, she never experienced anything until I moved in with her. And there was one night, it was actually the first night that I stayed. It was the first or second night that I actually stayed there in her house, and it was really weird. I was in the back bedroom, and this was really late at night, and I fell asleep in there. We were doing a whole bunch of moving and arranging stuff, and it was just a late night, and I fell asleep. And I woke up, and the door was shut, and the doorknob started rattling, like somebody was trying to get in. And I don't know, I don't feel like it was her. There was no kids, no animals, nothing of that nature. I got up to go to the door thinking maybe she was trying to get in, maybe there was something wrong with the door, I don't know. But as soon as I get up to the door, like maybe a foot and a half away, it stops. And I open the door right away. You know, groggy eye, I'm still trying to wake up and get my conscious back. And when I open the door, there's nothing there. All the lights are turned off, besides the kitchen light, that was left on, but that's normal. But yeah, other than that, that doorknob was completely on its own, and I looked in the bathroom, I looked in the main bedroom, I went around the entire house, front room, kitchen, nothing. I don't know. It was really weird. And she's had experiences too, but those were two things that happened in that one house back in Indiana.
Interesting.
Yeah, because I asked if you could hear things because I have this woman that's standing behind me, and she puts her hand on my shoulder, and she's telling me that you can hear things that other people don't hear. And then because I am able to feel her hand on my shoulder, that also confirms the like clairsentience that you were explaining earlier.
Really?
The blue spirit guide's been telling me the clairsentience. Do you feel animals' emotions a lot? Like physical animals, when they look at you, you know what they're asking you. Animals like you a lot. Except for like...
Except for what? I'm sorry?
There's like one cat that doesn't like you, but I think he's passed.
Really?
It's not that he doesn't like you, he just like was miffed by your existence, but I think that's just a cat thing.
Just a cat.
Right.
You have a dog right now or no?
I love cats. I've always had cats throughout my entire life. I love dogs too. I do have 2 cats, but we have one of the 2 that acts like a dog, if that counts.
Ah, got it. That's
yeah.
Really cute.
Yeah, and I've had quite a few cats that have passed, unfortunately, and 2 of them were more so my parents' cats. And one was a female, one was a male, and the male, it might be him that was more, away from me. He was a Russian blue, very reserved and just laid back, and I was a loud kid. I was a brat, so maybe that's what was wrong with me, and he didn't like loud noise. He was very reserved. And the female cat, she was a tabby, and she was really outgoing, and if she had enough, she would stand her ground, no big deal. But yeah, when it comes to animals, I do feel really connected to them, to be honest. And any animal that I go up to, they seem to like me. I haven't had an animal that that has pushed itself away from me or has gotten real angry or anything, or not that I can think of. And I am big on animals. It's odd you bring that up. That's cool.
Yeah, that's really cute. Yeah, you like look at them and their eyes see yours, and there's just like this understanding. More so on their end, but you feel it too.
Right. And I have noticed that too with my cats. Actually, they'll stare at me, especially I have a Russian blue gray now, but it's actually a female, and I have a Singapore, a little small one, and that's a male, and he's the one that acts like a dog. But they'll stare at me, like peer into my eyes, especially the Russian blue. I've caught her staring at me, like she'll come up to my face and stare right into my face, and I'm just like, oh my god, am I about to die? Or
no, she's telling you her stories. She's telling you about her day.
She's very chatty.
Yeah, she's
very
really
sassy.
cute.
Right. I'm just that's just really peculiar to me, because maybe I just never picked up on it growing up, being a teenager. I didn't get into the paranormal until 17. I went looking for it. I never really had anything odd growing up that I can think of. The only thing was my imaginary friend. I've shared that story a couple of times, so I'm sure the listeners are enjoying that. But he was a little, like a puppet body, a big balloon head, and a long, pokey, sharp nose, kind of like Pinocchio when he lies, but sharp at the end. Mm-hmm. And he, I don't know. I don't know about this imaginary friend. I sound like I'm crazy talking about it, but whenever he would appear, he had an odor to him. I don't want to say sulfur exactly, but kind of like an incinerator or like burning garbage. And I don't know, I feel like the conversations I had with this thing that I saw at one point, and I can still remember it visually, he wanted me to do things, and I didn't always feel comfortable doing them. What they were, I cannot remember. I don't know if it was, wanting to kill something, or just, draw on the walls, or, whatever it was. But I feel like this imaginary friend, it wanted me to be influenced by what it wanted me to do. And more often than not, I said no. And over time, it finally just disappeared. It stopped popping up. I didn't smell that smell anymore. So that's something I guess I grew up with. But other than that, I really didn't have anything. It was more until it wasn't until I was 17 I started going to graveyards and mental asylums and prisons and all that fun stuff.
Did you have like a fire pit or a cooker in your backyard, like in the middle of your yard when you were a kid? Like a fire pit or something?
No, I didn't have anything of that nature. It was a big field. I know the place that I lived at, it used to be, allegedly, it used to be a dumping ground, I guess. But as for having like a cooker or a fire pit in the backyard, no, it's mainly just like we just had barbecues a lot.
Okay.
What do you see this?
Well, I
imaginary
don't like
friend?
to talk to weird things, and
Well, do you see a weird thing?
not really. The only thing I see
No.
is like a fire pit or like I see the field in the backyard, but it was like there was a fire pit somewhere or like a grill or a cooker of some sort that's like cast iron.
Yeah, your spirit guides are telling me that your imaginary friend is kind of a manifestation of your energy to help you understand things.
Really?
But that's weird. I've never had a spirit tell me that before.
Wow, and that's crazy. Yeah, I don't know what that little dude was, but he had a shrill voice, and I don't know. It was like, "Arr, hey, hey."
Weird.
I don't know. It's not like I felt necessarily threatened, but it did make me feel off from time to time. But as for the cooker, I know that my dad, he liked to grill a lot back in the day, especially summer times, and we had like a metal grill. I don't know if it was cast iron. I really can't remember that, but we did that a lot though. I know we had a lot of good memories there at that place for sure.
That's super cute.
Thank you. Yeah, it's really unique with how things appear like that, and just kind of how they vanish. It's I don't know, having this conversation with you both now, it really does kind of open me up to things that I may have encountered that I didn't really take as a supernatural thing at one point. But yeah, as for hearing things, it's I hear things whenever I'm investigating. I'm trying to think off the top of my head if there's a lot here at my home, but it's really kind of random. I can't say I have like a pattern or like
I
a
feel like you hear
routine.
things on investigations because you're expecting it. So when it happens in your normal life, you don't notice that it's not paranormal.
Right. Yeah, it's just a clink or a nothing. I don't know. I'm so this is a theory that I really believe in. The way the world is, especially now, every decade, life gets faster, life gets busier, and it's really distracted people from being spiritual and in tune to themselves and to one another. And I admit I'm on my phone, I'm on computers, I'm doing modern day stuff instead of meditating like I probably should, or trying to be more spiritual. And I would love to, but man, life it catches up to you sometimes, and don't forget work. Work's so demanding, and just everything around us is so fast paced. But like you said though, when a investigation's going on, it's like you can slow down. When you're at a location, when me and my team are there, we can slow down. We have one focus, and I guess we open up. At that point spiritually, we don't worry about work. We don't worry about doing laundry or dishes or anything of that nature. It's like we're here at a location that has a history. It has allegations that there are living things here that are invisible, whether they're human or non-human. There's something here that's not of this world, allegedly, and there's certain ways that we should be able to communicate. So let's find those ways, and let's try to capture some evidence to prove that these things are not just on TV shows and movies. And I think it just really kind of opens up a world, and we're able to slow down, and it really changes the environment. But yeah, it's interesting. It'd be really cool to go on an investigation with you two and be able to communicate with alleged spirits at a location, and then kind of get a feedback of what you feel or what you see, because you two are more understanding of what to expect and what frequencies come your way, where I'm not. I might hear something that you both hear and you're like, oh yeah, that was totally something paranormal. I'm just like, I don't know. I think I'm just losing my mind. I need to have a little more confidence.
That would be fun. I've
Yeah, it'd
only
be
been
real
to Florida once. If you give me pizza, I'll sit on the floor and tell you what all the dead people have to say.
Oh yeah, that's perfect.
But I need stuffed crust pizza.
Oh yeah,
Great.
that's the way to do
perfect.
it.
What?
Can only talk to dead people with stuffed crust pizza
And juice boxes.
and juice boxes.
Oh yeah, doing it like the 90s, man. That's all right.
The ones that taste like blue, the blueberry ones, they literally,
God.
they don't taste like blueberry. They taste like the color blue. You know what I'm
Right.
talking about.
Synesthesia.
I'd have to trade my Cheez-Its or my sad pretzels for one of those at the lunchbox table.
Mm-hmm.
Oh
What?
man.
Synesthesia.
Liquid gold.
Yes! That
Yeah.
would be fun.
It'd be really cool to do a collab with you on a location. We can put it on our
Absolutely.
YouTube channel.
Oh yeah, yeah, that'd be really great. Yeah, there's a town down here in Florida that is literally a haunted town. It's like our Gettysburg, I guess, and it's called no, it's not St. Pete, St. Augustine, Florida, and there's
Seeing it.
a whole bunch of history. I haven't been there myself. I haven't. I would
Is
love
it-
to, but
Is it like a little town or does it look like sort of like a vacation area where it's a little too animated, like the places?
well, I've noticed that with some of the pictures I've seen, there are some little areas that are probably built up for tourism, but it's very historic. You know, like the old brick and like not sand, I'm sorry, stucco buildings, and they have an old lighthouse. There was a lot of invasions during that time.
I want to go to the lighthouse.
Liv is really excited about going to a haunted lighthouse.
I just
Oh,
want to live in a lighthouse. And if there's a spooky man that looks like the Gordon's fisherman that also haunts it, I will live there peacefully with him.
That is a life goal right there. In game. That's in game right there. Right on, Liv. For sure, man. For sure. Yeah, no, that would be really cool to do an investigation, especially at a lighthouse. That's not an everyday thing. Something else that we've talked about, my team and I, is like doing an investigation on a boat in the middle of the ocean where unfortunately there was a sinking, like the Titanic. You know, it's a lot of emotions, a lot of unfortunately negative vibes, I would say, but a lot of things happen really quick and people pass. So I'm just curious, like if you went to a spot on the ocean and you tried to communicate with people that passed away on the surface, could you get something? Or are they stuck on the ship, or did all these souls move on? I don't know. It'd be different.
Lesson 1 in all of the spiritual spoopiness. Separation is an illusion.
And what that means is we would be able to talk to them from anywhere because they are energy, so we can just pinpoint the energy. It's kind of like how radio frequencies work. You don't have to be next to the radio tower in order to get like the frequency from the tower. You can be far away from it.
You can be jamming out in your car by yourself. You don't got to be next to the disc jockey.
So that's why Liv and I are able to do these famous haunted locations from like my porch. And we can talk to souls from my porch because they're just spirits. So we are able to just be able to communicate with them because they are not physically bound to something. They are just energy.
Because when I'm doing medium readings, I'm not like chilling out with somebody's body. I'm like in my room talking to a client like I'm talking to you, and the soul of the past loved one comes in. So it's funny because when we started doing this, Em was like, okay, well, we have to make money somehow with our business, right? And I was like, yeah. She's like, you have to do readings. And I was like, I can't do readings unless I'm not there next to my client. And she's like, why? And I was like, because that's just how it works. And she's like, that makes no sense. You're not talking to the soul of a person by sitting next to them. You're talking to a client and the soul is able to talk to you. She's like, that time when you were at Panera and the person was coming in for the guy that was eating soup in the booth next to us, it doesn't matter, right? And I was like, I guess not. And then I was really nervous on my first Zoom reading because that's how all of our readings are done unless you live close to us. And my spirit guides were like, guess what? You think this girl lives in the same state as you. And then I asked her to send a thank you card at the end of the letter or at the end of the reading. and she's
Hours and hours away.
literally on the other side of the United States.
Gosh.
Oh, wow. Wow, that is crazy.
But yeah, Emily blew my mind.
So with spirits then that people believe are bound to a location because of like a tragic death or murder or anything like that, or a spirit that allegedly repeatedly haunts or revisits a location, you don't believe that they're actually stuck there? Is it just like a significance where they go back then?
Well, that's specifically dictated by the soul themselves. Sometimes they're not necessarily stuck to where they passed. They don't want to pass over for different reasons. Sometimes it's not like, hey, they missed the boat, like you missed a bus stop, you know, like you
Right.
missed the bus going to school. It's not always like that. It's sometimes souls are too afraid to leave because of the own belief systems that they had in place when they were in this life. So we talk about the man in the mansion, I think, in one of our videos, or we talk about him in one of our podcasts for sure, because it's my mother's story actually. And he was haunting this mansion that she was kind of coerced into reading because she didn't want to go there because she doesn't deal with negative souls or negative entities. And there aren't negative souls. It's just if somebody's angry, you're angry. But if you're a soul and you're angry, it's no different than a person being alive and being angry. So he had passed somewhere entirely different. However, he chose to haunt this mansion instead of passing over for multiple reasons, even though, again, he didn't pass there. But the mansion itself was significant to his life when he was alive. Now, I was going to talk about another person. I don't remember who it was now. Oh, the Lizzie Borden house.
Oh, yes.
We were talking, we have a video on the Lizzie Borden house. If you want to see me cry like a baby, go watch it. You want to hear me cry like a baby? Listen to the podcast too. But there was a person who, or a soul who was not passed over with the Lizzie Borden house. And the reason they didn't pass over is not because like they're not stuck at the Lizzie Borden house. They just were stuck in physicality itself because they were too angry and too upset to pass over, because the members of the Lizzie Borden house had passed over, even though they themselves were the ones that had the hand in the murder, and he was kind of coerced into being an accomplice of it. And he was just so painstakingly frustrated that these other people were able to be in heaven with God. However, he felt himself not worthy to be there because of the thing that he was coerced into being an accomplice with, and other things that had happened in his life because of his status within society. And once I was able to explain to him that that isn't how it works, and that I'm not here to invalidate people's beliefs, but I was like, sir, it's been a long while, and you know, you're choosing to talk to me. And if you want to listen to me, I'm going to tell you that if you want to pass over into heaven, where you deserve to be, you are the only one keeping yourself there. And then he literally passed over into spirit, and it was freaking wild.
Wow.
That was, yeah, it was crazy. That's probably the craziest thing. Because I know at the beginning of the podcast, I talked about the woman with 60 years of love and marriage. That was cool. I forgot about that.
Yeah, and it's really neat too, Liv, that you're both not only helping people, but you're helping spirits too. You know, you're kind of doing a double whammy here on bringing peace on Earth.
I think they actually help us more than we help them, honestly.
Really? In what ways do you see?
So many spiritual spankings happen at all times. I mean, the 60 years of marriage was really cool. They put a lot of things into perspective. A lot of times, well, I don't want to say a lot of times, people ask a lot of times, what is my reason to be here? And if there is an afterlife, what is the point of us continuing this horrible existence of going to work and paying taxes and diseases, bad pizza that doesn't taste good when you get it and you've been looking forward to it all day? The reason is not just one thing, but you have to learn many things. And through those many lessons that you learn in your life, whether you believe in living one or multiple, is to learn the difference between sympathy and empathy. Sympathy is someone's ability to understand and relate to someone else, even though they themselves have not experienced whatever it is that the other is talking about. However, empathy is being able to wholeheartedly understand and relate to on the same basis as someone else because you've gone through the same or similar experience. It gives you perspective of your reality and the world around you, or things even farther out around you. So being a medium and talking to other people, not only physically, but also in spirit or heaven, gives you so much perspective because you can talk to people and hear what they have to say. However, when I'm speaking to a soul, it's not like me and you speaking. It's them giving you those feelings that they had when they were alive, whether that be smelling drugs that someone had misused when they were alive, to feeling 60 years of marriage, to experiencing, I don't know, the loss of a child, to experiencing the joy of having multiple children and now being able to see them from heaven and be so overjoyed with what your life was able to produce and still be able to see that and love them from afar. Those are the things that spirit teaches us as mediums with every reading. And for me, that is much cooler than what maybe Em and I might do here.
Gotcha. Well, it's really neat that you guys are kind of like a bridge then for people that aren't used to this type of thing, or they're terrified, or they just don't know what's going on. So it really does make a difference, and it's pretty much like a co-op, and that's really fascinating. It's really nice to be able to get this breakdown from different people and for it to be so detailed, because it really goes to show the reality of what this world, what this existence is really about.
Yeah, it's super cool.
And with your abilities too, I was curious, do you do anything specific when with the investigations that you have done? Is there any type of specific like combo that you do? What type of equipment do you use, by the way?
So the equipment that we have a REM pod, we have a motion sensor music box, we have cat balls, we have like twist flashlights, which are really crazy.
Wow.
And then we have a spirit box. I think that's everything.
Nice. Spirit boxes are fun. That's where it's at.
Yeah, and spirit boxes are interesting because the way that the way that spirits have it explained to us is it's almost like they like push their voices into the frequencies of like the radio frequencies in order to like relay those messages. Because it's interesting that every time someone is on a spirit box, they'll get different words from what they're hearing.
Right. That's a really good way of saying it too, Em. Yeah, because it is exactly like that, as if they're pushing their voice into the frequency to speak outwards. And you'll hear different voices, different highs and lows and things of that nature. But when you're able to start getting those words that kind of pinpoint to your question, or maybe something that occurred at that place, like if there was a death in 1828, you hear 1828 or murder or something like that, it really kind of piques your mind a little bit, like, okay, maybe there is something here. Maybe the spirit box isn't just a whole bunch of random frequencies going through really fast.
Yeah, and we do something called the SS method. So it's where you basically have noise canceling headphones and someone listens to the sounds of the spirit box, and each person that's on that will get like different amounts of information. So some people won't be able to hear anything. If you put Liv on it, she'll give you full sentences.
I was singing Katy Perry. It was really good.
Oh, wow.
So I also feel like spirits will manipulate the things that make sense to you so that you are able to say the right thing at the right time.
Gotcha. That is really cool. So it's kind of like they pinpoint or target, I guess, the right person for the message. Is that right?
Well, because they're spirits, it's almost like they have a bigger picture of what the physical realm looks like. So they have the ability to know everything about us. So they know what they need to do in order to make you understand information. So if they just give you like a letter or something, someone might interpret that as an entire word, and they know that if they give you that information based upon who you are and the fact that they know who you are, then you are going to say the right words because they like manipulated you to do that.
Nice. Okay. Okay. Wow. Yeah, that's a really unique way of, breaking down communication. That really is. I like that. Yeah, and it really makes you wonder too, like how some people see things, some people hear things, some don't. Yet we all are kind of made up of the same stuff, the same essence, but we're on different levels, I guess, of being able to receive. It's kind of like that whole receiver, the two-way walkie-talkie. One speaks, one receives type of thing.
Right.
Wow, that is so cool. So with your future investigations, are there any type of like specific methods or locations that you're wanting to investigate? Any type of specific goal for evidence, if you will?
Beautiful castles where I can have tea with the ladies of the court in spirit.
Well, one of the things that you were explaining to me is that you wanted to go through the like location first and then write down information before we had equipment there.
Yeah.
And also we would need to go there and not have prior knowledge. So that's why we created a team so that our other two people are able to do the research of the location, because as a psychic medium, when you have too much information, it kind of is hard to differentiate between your own thoughts versus spirit's thoughts. So if you know something about a location, you're like, is this my thought or is spirit telling me about this? So it's kind of hard to differentiate, which is why a lot of mediums are like, don't show me any pictures, don't tell me any of the stories. I'll tell you the stories if they're important. So that's why it lives like, I want to go through the entire location and like write stuff down. And then we'll have all the equipment come in and see if we can validate the things that we are seeing as psychic mediums first.
With
That's
the equipment.
Smart. Yeah, no, that's really smart. That's a really good way to validate for sure, because having too much information, or the way that I've kind of gone through with it myself, is if you go in knowing too much or you're expecting something specific, you might get that, or for me, you might trick yourself into doing that. And that's why obviously basic background checking is important, knowing kind of what you're going for, but it's kind of sitting there in the middle of a room, and just listening for a little while, see if something comes to you, and instead of creating that. Because I have had some investigators on my team that unfortunately did create things they thought was real, but you go back and listen, or you go there and you try to experience that with them, and you see that it wasn't really what they thought or what they heard or saw. And I've even had tricksters too on my team. That's always fun, is getting those non-real, non-sincere individuals.
That's fun.
Oh yeah. It's like, this isn't TV show. Come on.
Oh man.
Yeah, it's something else, and that's one thing that I learned really quick too, is what you see on TV, you're not always going to get in real life. Every location, you're not going to always get something. Every location is not going to be the same thing. It may not even be consistent, back-to-back energy, back-to-back experiences. Some people might, if you're more open, if you're more of like a conduit, maybe your energy, maybe your techniques do bring spirits out. It's all about kind of like what you both said earlier, everyone's different. Everyone has their own unique abilities and different sensitivities. And I feel that's the same way for me and in my team. And like I was saying earlier, it's odd. The more positive that I've gotten, not provoking, not offering my energy, and it could have been from my prior experiences at the old mental institution back in Indianapolis, Indiana. But after those events, I kind of blocked myself a little bit, because I didn't want things following me home again. I didn't want things attacking me or my loved ones. Not that my loved ones were attacked, it was just me, but I don't want that, moving forward. So I've kind of closed myself off, but in the past month, I've started to open myself up a little bit more, and some weird things have happened. I do have to say, I've been kind of picking up on stuff. For example, about 2 weeks ago, I saw a ghost cat walk in my home, my new home down here
Oh,
in Florida.
was
So
it
that
orange?
Oh,
yeah, it was orange. How did you?
I knew it. You
How do
said you have gray cats, and I was like, why do I see an orange cat?
oh God.
I love orange cats.
That
I don't
is
care if they're
insane.
dead or alive.
I don't care
Sorry.
if they're dead or alive. That's so great. That is crazy that you picked that up. Yeah, it was an orange cat. It was like dark speckled orange and then light orange all around it, and it's kind of like the Garfield, but it was just spotted everywhere. And I had an orange and white cat that passed away about a couple weeks before I saw that ghost cat. But this ghost cat didn't look like my orange and white cat. It was a different pattern, but I saw it though, and the people, there was a few family members that lived here in this home before me and my fiance, and one of the neighbors shared with us that one of the families, it was an older couple actually, they had a whole bunch of cats and they were hoarders, and I would take it that I get the feeling that they were more neglectful, not abusive, and the cats maybe just weren't fed or watered, and they weren't being taken proper care of, and some of the cats may have passed here, and that's what I feel that we're seeing and that we're experiencing here in this home, is a cat or two that may have passed. But yeah, I was here in my office working, and I turn around and my physical alive cat, he is sleeping in on the couch that's in here in the office right there in front of me. So I saw him, and my other cat, she's gray, Russian blue, very dark. I would know for sure if it was her, but she was actually, when I checked after the sighting, she was in the master bedroom underneath the bed. But I turned around, just for a moment, just for whatever reason, and I see this chunky orange cat just trottling along in the front
his
room.
Little belly was big.
Yeah, it was. It was, and I just looked down the hallway, dude, and I'm just like, wait a minute, no,
That is not
no.
my cat.
That's not really what I thought. Is how the hell did a cat get in my house that's not my cat? I know I didn't leave any doors open, so I get up instantly and I go
Your
out there
cat
to
always
look,
bit me.
and it's not there. The cat is not there. There's nothing physically there. So that was a mind-blowing moment. It was like, cool, I haven't investigated in a couple of years, so that's cool. I'll take that.
May I ask you questions about your kitty cat?
Of course.
Did they have a white tummy?
A white tummy.
Orange cat?
The orange cat that you had that passed, did they have like white down their chest and stuff?
Uh-huh. Sure
Oh.
did.
Did they have white on their toes?
Yes.
Oh! And it was a boy? He was a boy?
It was.
Oh, what was his name? I'm bad
It's-
with names.
Well, I had two cats, and I'm pretty sure they were from the same litter. They're both passed. But the one that we're speaking about, and the reason why I brought up the other one is because he had white on his toes too. Both of them did.
Ah. Okay.
But the orange one, the orange and white that we're talking about, that's Sunny.
Okay. He's so cute. Did you have him before you met your fiance?
Mm-hmm. I sure did.
Okay. Did he know her for about 2 years?
So about a year and a half-ish.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's really cute.
Yep.
Does she like to cook in the morning and you don't really like to cook that much?
It's more of whenever we're available. But yeah, she likes to get up and cook in the morning, and I'm a deadhead.
Yeah, because I feel like he would come and hang out with her in the morning when she was cooking and be like, excuse me, are we supposed to be making food for everybody? But he's telling me that you just very much were asleep at all points in time. But they would have like their morning conversations a little bit.
Oh yeah, I'm a total deadhead, and that's how Sonny was too, man. Like anytime that somebody would cook something, he would be right up there on them. He'd be
Did
right
he
up on
really?
us.
I know this sounds weird, but did he really like water, but like drinking it from weird places?
No, not that I ever caught him. Excuse me, that was more the other cat, Tiger Roo.
Oh. Okay, was Tiger Roo more of the obnoxious one, whereas Sunny? No, they're both equally obnoxious. They're telling me one of them is just more weird than the other.
Right, yeah, that would be Tiger Roo. He was more weird and more obnoxious. Sunny could be, but he was more calm though.
Did Tiger Roo like to play with toys a lot more?
He did. Yes, he did.
Okay. Do you still have like a tan mouse somewhere in the house?
Yeah, I believe we do actually. Yeah,
He's
we
like,
have a couple
that is
of
the
those.
one.
That is so cool.
Oh, he's so cute.
Yeah,
I like both of them.
well,
Wait, was
thank you,
Tiger
Liv.
Roo a little bit chubbier or like bigger?
No, that would be Flip Flop. Sunny
Okay.
was the heftier one, most definitely.
That's funny. They're adorable. If you have any questions, you can ask. Also, thank you for letting me tell you about your kitty cats because I was like, why are there orange cats everywhere? And it was the one that saw you that looked like Garfield because he definitely doesn't have like really any white on him. He might like right on the tip of his like neck area, but you can't really see it. And he's the one that has the aloof, sassy demeanor.
Gotcha. That's the one that's not as cool
He
with
like
me, I guess.
he mean mugs you, yeah.
Yeah. Because I'm not too familiar with that one. I like I said, I saw him that one time, and I only got a side view of him, to be honest with you. And it's I know whenever we've had some weird things happen here in the house, I'll start to cleanse the home and I'll pray because it goes back to my experiences from Central State Hospital, the mental asylum in Indiana, and I had a lot of negative, a lot of what I consider malevolent, demonic encounters. And so I don't take spiritual things really lightly. When something weird happens, I'm on it like a fly on sugar, putting it a little more lightly. And it's just, I don't want to take that chance of having those attacks again. One thing I will share with the both of you is something that happened probably about a month ago. It's so random, but I've been trying to communicate more with the spirit realm, but on a safer level, because I don't know, life's been boring, so I've just been trying to do something different and fun, and I haven't actually tried to communicate in several years, so I'm just trying it different. So I was talking to what I believe to be God and Jesus Christ, and I asked them politely, it's like, hey, I'm pretty amateur, I go to haunted places and I do stuff like that, and thank you for the experiences, but I would like something a little more direct if you could. I would like an encounter of some sign. I'd like to talk to someone, show me a sign of how I can do things, if it's my time. I don't know, just throwing it out there as kindly as I can. And it was just really, really odd how this happened. But that same day, probably about 10-15 minutes later after that prayer, I walk into the back room and I go to grab something out of that room, and as I turn back to leave, I look out the side window, and this is only part one of what happened later on that night. But the first part was when I looked out the window, there's this red cardinal that just flew up out of nowhere. And typically the only times that I have seen cardinals down here in Florida is after I've prayed, or me and my fiance were on a walk and we were talking about God, and I've only seen it 3 times. I've seen cardinals down here 3 times in Florida. Indiana maybe a lot more because that's like the bird and all that stuff. But yeah, 3 times, and it was always a prayer related or spiritual connection type thing. And I saw that cardinal, and when I looked at it, it's like it was trying to communicate. I guess it sounds weird, but it made me tear up, and a good tear up, I guess. And after couple of seconds it flew off, and then that was pretty much it. But I looked up to the big man. I said, thank you, I'll take that as a sign. But this is where it gets a little crazier. It didn't stop there. I got a little bit more, and I wasn't expecting this. Later this night I woke up probably around I don't know, 2:30, just one of those nights, and I go out to the front room to grab a little late night snack, and I go to watch my show that I haven't finished yet, Game of Thrones. I'm a late bloomer, but I finally finished it. And as I'm watching the show, I have all the lights off. I have my phone behind me on the couch. I'm sitting on the floor, Indian style, just chilling in front of the TV and in the front room. And out of nowhere, in the middle of the show playing, there's a blue spark. It's like a blue ball, but it's a spark type of thing, and it's on the left hand side of me. Kind of best way to describe it is the tip end of a sparkler for the 4th of July is what it looked like, but it was blue. It was blue and white in the center, and as quickly as it appeared, it disappeared. And right after it disappeared, there's this really loud clap, kind of like I took my hands and I just clapped as loud as I could. It's like something was right there next to my face and it clapped. And of course, this everything that just happened, that's like sensory overload for someone that's not familiar with it. And I just start praying. I'm just like, whatever it is, get out of here. I don't I don't know if you're evil or not. But I've had experiences I could talk to you two about as well, at a later point, that looking back at it now, I don't think it was evil, but it happened so quick. It startled me. It's in the dark living room. First thing I'm thinking is I'm being attacked by something. And, I do help people with demonic attachments and negative energies, with the things that I've done to get rid of them, because I've had them follow me home. I've had attachments. So sometimes when I help people, there can be that possibility that they can hitchhike, they can leech on, and they try to mess with me because I'm trying to help that person that they're trying to parasite off of, their host. And so the first thing comes to my mind is I need to cleanse the house, I need to be careful and whatever. But looking back at it, I don't know, maybe it was a spirit guide or an angel, because I clap my hands sometimes to be silly with my cats. They like it, they trot around, and maybe that's their way of like, hey, this is what you do, we'll do it too. I don't know, or I was just losing my mind, but it was pretty intense, man.
When you said you were talking to God, that you were talking to a male spirit, maybe like a grandfather. He's like an old man, and he says that we are created in the image and likeness of God. So he is a part of God, which is why that is who is coming forward to speak with you when you are talking to like God, Jesus, that kind of thing. But he feels very like protective and like also like a guiding hand.
Gotcha. I did not know that.
Do you have a grandfather that passed? I want to say he's possibly on your mother's side, maybe. But he kind of has a sense of humor, and he wears glasses, and when he laughs, he has this sort of like giddy, cackly, comedic laugh.
If that's so, I wouldn't know, because my mom's father, he passed away literally the year that I was born. He was going to come down to see me for the first time, but he passed away before I could meet him.
Yeah, I was going to say, is he a guardian angel?
Right. No, that's got me wondering.
I want to say yes. He's really funny. He's using, so when souls communicate, they'll use things that have happened in my past, present, or future, theirs or yours, to give information, because they know, see, hear, and feel everything. We have our 5 physical senses that allow us to traverse the physical world. However, when we're souls and we don't have a physical body and we're not in a physical plane of existence, we don't need that anymore. So we get to be able to know, see, hear, and feel everything. So he's using like Disney quotes for me.
Oh gosh.
Oh, wow.
Like literally, like, oh, so you asked, is he like a spirit guide or something? And he did that.
He's like
thing.
a guardian angel. That's
Yeah.
the immediate thing I got when you were talking about God is I got this old man that you possibly don't know very well because he's part of your family. Because you don't know him very well, that's why he's in your life, to be a guardian angel for you.
And I feel like he was kind of kooky in the sense of like, normal people would think us doing a podcast about the paranormal and metaphysical would be quote unquote kooky.
Right.
He's like, I would be somebody that would maybe make fun of them, but also I would also be excited about it. I don't know. He's like using cartoon animation to explain things to me, kind of like Walt Disney a little bit, but I know he's not Walt Disney. But he confirmed the guardian angel thing by like doing the Tinkerbell thing. What is it when they like wiggle their nose and like blink? I don't know, like cartoon things. But
Pixie dust.
He's really cute.
Gotcha. Yeah, if it's anything like that, I'll have to ask my mom, to be honest. I don't know if my grandpa on my mother's side was really into that or not. I would have to ask, because I really don't know too much about him. On my dad's side, I do. So, if there's any type of traits or attributes from him, I would probably be more familiar with that. But yeah,
he's wearing like a blue plaid shirt. It's buttoned down, and it's the ones that like the old men wear because they're the short sleeved ones. And he's wearing jeans. I feel like he would wear glasses, maybe. His head is bald and his ears are a little bit bigger. He has big round face and he's in his late 60s.
Really?
And he just has the goofiest little demeanor. Like he would tell you jokes that would just like light you up.
Wow. Yeah, I really don't know right off the top of my head. Yeah,
That's okay.
Yeah, it might be somebody I haven't met before. I'd have to describe that to my mom. You say on my mom's side, right? That's what it felt like?
I feel like he's on your mom's side, but it's hard sometimes to get the directionality of it. But I feel like if he died, he was like 67, like late 60s.
Gotcha. Okay. Lisa, yeah, I'm not too sure. Yeah, I know it can't be on my dad's side then, because he was in his late 70s. In his 70s, mid to late. So yeah, I'm gonna have to ask. It's got me inquisitive now. I like that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's really cute. You were talking about it, and Em and I looked at each other, and I mouthed grandpa, and she's like, oh, yeah.
See, totally. No, that's cool that you both synced on that. And it's a really nice, like, confirmation here on my end, because when that happened, like, I don't know. It was terrifying because it happened so sudden. You know, it wasn't the type of interaction I was kind of anticipating, you know, or thinking about. Like, maybe I could hear something or a whisper or even a touch on the arm. Like, that would be actually more acceptable, believe it or not. But, you know, there's this random flash of light that's right there on my coffee table, and then this loud, like, clapping of the hands right after it disappears, and there was nothing there, and it was so it was so real. I had to look around and underneath the coffee table just to make sure I didn't have like a water bottle or a Gatorade bottle that, you know, was popping because it was cold, and maybe the front room was a little warmer or something, and there was nothing there. You know, there was nothing physically, logically there that could have made that happen. It was crazy.
Oh, that's such a good story.
So Liv, I know that we had a lot of coverage here, and I know we have a lot more too, and I'm all psyched for it. But before we do, in the segment, I do want to make sure that we can cover your guys' best ports, your best outlets. If people do want to interact with you, ask questions, follow up on like your podcast and your YouTube channel, and kind of your future projects that you're going to be doing, where can they find you? What would be the best way of getting that?
So all of our socials are on metapsyckics.com. And the way that you spell metapsychics, because Liv had a fun time with spelling.
Yeah, we're your sidekicks to all things metaphysical.
It is METAPSYCKICKS. So that's where you can find all of our other social medias. We have a podcast, which we're going to record and to do a podcast as well, so if you want to go check out our collab over there as well. We also have a YouTube channel, so you can check us out there. We have TikTok. We also have a blog, so that's directly on our website, but you can find all of our social medias and all of our readings if you're interested in booking a reading with us on metapsyckics.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you ladies so much for speaking with us, and for all the listeners out there, these two obviously have some good intuition. So again, thank you for sharing your stories and your advice as well. And hopefully in the future we can do more than just a podcast audio show collaboration. I want to get out there in the field with you two and actually see what we can discover, you know, on two different spectrums. I think it'd be really cool and kind of break things down, you know?
Yeah,
Ugh,
it'll be really
pizza.
awesome.
Oh, yeah.
To the dead. Are you kidding me? I'm game.
Gosh.
I want to say do you say the catchphrase at the end of your podcasts?
I do have a cheesy catchphrase at the end.
I want to do it. I creeped on you. I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's all right.
And I did it like a normal person. I didn't like remote view you or something, you know?
AKA she listened to the end of your podcast instead of just knowing it because she's a psychic medium.
That's what I was actually kind of thinking of. It was the psychic thing. She's like, I know there's a catchphrase, and I know what it is.
I'm just into catchphrases.
Oh yeah, no, it's in the force, man. You can feel it in the force. That's all right. But no, by all means, let's do that catchphrase. I want to thank you both again for coming on, and of course, until next time, stay frosty.
Stay frosty. I love it. It's great.
All right, I think that's another episode wrapped up successfully. To all of our listeners out there, I hope you all have truly enjoyed today's show, and I would like to personally thank Liv and Em once again for coming on and sharing their insightfulness, knowledge, and stories. Because honestly, the more that we come together and we share these encounters, these experiences, all of these different things within this world, it really opens your eyes, or your eye if you're thinking about the third eye here, you know, to what's possible in this world and the next. And sometimes you look at it and see that the impossible isn't necessarily impossible. So again, thank you both for coming on and sharing everything that you have. It was truly a pleasure. And for everyone out there, you know how to reach these two ladies if you'd like to, ask them some questions or possibly even get on their own podcast. And the same goes for us here at P.I.O.T Paranormal and the Pair Connection podcast. Just go to Google, type in P.I.O.T Paranormal, and you will find everything on us, from the website to the podcast, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, everything, you know it. And of course, if you'd like to get on the show, be sure to send us an email or a message through social media, and we'll be more than happy to get back with you and go from there. Well, once again, I would like to thank you all for tuning in. And until next time, stay frosty.